All right, hello everyone. Mr. Wagner here, and we're going to go ahead and do our first lab in terms of just trying to familiarize ourselves with some of the equipment, some of the safety stuff, as well as just figuring out how to do some measurement, as that's kind of the portion of the course that we're on right now. So this is just a lab that we're going to do together, and you'll do some of it on your own for homework, but I'm going to walk you through most of it. If you have any questions, please let me know, and we'll be happy to take care of that. But if you look at what are some of the things we have, we always have our instructions page, which we're going to follow sort of step by step so that we don't make any mistakes, and that we try to do this as safely as possible. I also have a meter stick, which I use for measuring lengths. I'm going to have my electronic balance, which I'll use for measuring masses, and I have a graduated cylinder, which I use for measuring volumes. Then I also have a beaker just to put some stuff in and take some measurements, and so that's kind of what we're looking at. The data table on the board is going to be very similar to the one you'll see on the lab sheet itself. And so we're going to kind of fill part of that out together, but you'll also fill out some of it on your own, and I'll talk about that as we go through. So when we first start a lab, we want to make sure that we read through the instructions and make sure we understand what's happening sort of step by step. And so this one I've already read through multiple times, but I want to follow through on some safety issues first. And the safety issues have to do with handling glassware mostly. Now, if we were using chemicals, one of the safety features we would always have in a lab is that I would have goggles on my face. But I'm only using tap water today, so I don't need really any goggles, safety goggles. I'm not using any chemicals at all, so I don't need safety goggles on. So what is our safety for today's lab? Well, it's really just handling the glassware appropriately. So whenever I have a beaker, if I was carrying this across the room, I'd have one hand underneath it, and I'd have one hand kind of supporting it on top. That way, if anyone happened to bump me, I wouldn't be, I would be less likely to drop it and break it. In terms of our graduated cylinders, they always have this little safety ring at the top, and the safety ring is there in case that you happen to knock it over. Then what happens is it will not break the glass because the glass doesn't come in contact with the tabletop. And so a lot of times people want to move this down for some reason. I don't know why that is, but I think it's just to be able to read the numbers a little bit better on the cylinder. But we always just want to leave that toward the top so that if someone does happen to knock it over, then it doesn't break. Okay, so those are our main safety features for today. So let's go ahead and get into the lab. The first step in the lab is to measure the width of our lab table. And so I'm going to use my meter stick. Now my meter stick, you can't see the edge of the table because I want you to be able to see the board too. But if I put this at the edge of the lab table, you would see that it doesn't go all the way to the other edge. And so we have to do something a little bit different there. I'm going to put it at the edge, and I'm going to step out of the screen for just a second. But I'm putting it right at the edge, and right at the edge, I can't get there. So I'm going to put a little pencil mark on the table, and that way I know where the meter stick ended. And now I can go ahead and find my pencil mark and put it at the edge here. And I want to be as accurate as I possibly can. And so I'm kind of looking at this right here at the edge, and it's 100, because the meter stick is 100, plus 21.5, so it's 121.5 centimeters. And again, in science, we're always going to use the International System of Units, and so that's going to be in centimeters. So my width of my table, I use my meter stick. So that's what will go there. And my measurement was 121.5 centimeters. Now the part that you're going to do, if you look at your notes, we went over how to do conversions. And so you're going to convert that first into meters, and then your second thing is convert it into millimeters. And so those are the two boxes that you're going to fill in on your own. Okay? And so that's what we do for measurement of length. My next one is to do mass, and so I have this beaker here, and I have my electronic balance for measuring mass. And I'm going to go ahead and measure the mass of my beaker. So I want to make sure that it says 0 on the screen first, and if it doesn't, there's a 0 button I could push to go ahead and 0 that out, just in case. But right now it says 0, so I'm just going to place my beaker on top of that, and I'm going to let it kind of balance out for a second and make sure that the numbers are all good. And so this one says 50.62. So I use my electronic balance. And I had 50.62, and that's in grams. And again, your job is to convert that to milligrams and kilograms. And so you'll do those two conversions on your own. Okay? And so now I can take that off the balance, and then now I'm at step 3. And for step 3, I'm using the graduated cylinder to measure out 25 mLs of water. So I just have some water in a little container here, and I want to get the numbers where I can see them nice and easily. Now, when I measure out volumes, I don't want to be measuring like this because I could be tipping this one way or another. And whenever I measure volumes, I'm always looking in glass. Liquids always kind of have this sort of curve to them. And so we're looking at the bottom of that curve. It's called the meniscus. And I want to get the meniscus right on the 25. So I'm going to go ahead and add my water to my graduated cylinder. And then once I get close, I want to go ahead and get down sort of eye level to where it's at, so I'm not making any measurement mistakes. And I'm just going to add a few drops at a time until I get that meniscus right at the 25. Okay, so that looks pretty good right there. And so there's my 25 mLs of water. And again, going to the board here, I'm using my graduated cylinder. And it was told to me that I'm going to measure out 25 mLs. And again, your job is to convert that to liters. Okay, so only one conversion for that. The X's mean you're not actually doing that in that section. Okay, you're not doing any conversions. Okay, so that was step 3. Now step 4 says I'm going to empty this into my beaker because I want to mass this. My goal is to try to find out, the purpose of this is to try to find out what 1 ml of water weighs. And so that's ultimately what I'm trying to do. And so it's really hard to measure out in a cylinder 1 ml of water and then mass it. And so I measured out 25 mL, so that's a little easier to measure. And then we'll do some math to sort of figure out what 1 weighs. Okay? So I want to get like every drop into my beaker as best I can. And then I'm going to place that on my electronic balance. And I see on this that it weighs 74.95. So again, I'm using my electronic balance. And it weighs 74.95 grams. Okay? And so that's what 25 mLs weighs. Now, in order to figure out what 1 ml weighs, you're going to have to do a little bit of math here. And so you know what the beaker weighs, and then this was the beaker and the water together. And so I want to know really what only the water weighs, okay? And so in order to do that, I'm going to do the math here a little bit, and so I'm going to leave that for you to do. But I want to know if this is actually the water and the beaker mass. That's a mistake right there. Get rid of that. Okay, so for us, we want to change that, and we want to actually put what just the water weighs. And so right now it's the water and the beaker, so I want to subtract these two numbers, and I want to figure out what just the water weighs. So this is not the number you're going to put here. You're going to actually put what just the water weighs after you do your math. Now once you have what just the water weighs, then you want to find out what 1 ml is going to weigh. So you can take that and you're going to divide it by 25, because this is what 25 mLs weighs, and you want to find out what 1 weighs. All right? And so that's what you're going to do to fill in these boxes down here. This is just going to be a calculator. And you're going to calculate what that is because, again, it's really difficult to measure out 1 ml of water as opposed to just calculating it. Okay? And then from there, you're going to write a conclusion. So now in your conclusions, you're going to use the CER format. The C stands for claim, the E for evidence, and the R for reasoning. That information is found on that lab report format sheet. And you want to make sure that you have read that and gone through it in detail. I'll go over it in class with us as well. But you want to make sure that you're following that format whenever you write a conclusion so that you get full points. Remember, conclusions are worth the most on a lab write-up in terms of point values. So you want to make sure that you're writing that correctly so that you get the most number of points you can. But we'll go over that together in class a little bit, and then you'll have time to do it. All right? This, again, was the measurement lab, and it's our first one, so do a good job, and hopefully everyone gets full points and does the best that they can on it. All right? You guys have a great day, and I'll see you in class.